Hello and welcome to What Credit Means to Me. In this lesson, we will learn how credit works, how to build credit, and learn how a strong credit profile can help you achieve your goals. This lesson is brought to you by Greater Atlanta Builds Credit. Before we dive into credit scores and reports, let's take a step back to get a quick industry overview for context. At the center of everything, we have you, the consumer, and consumers are responsible in our system for monitoring the accuracy of their own credit reports. Your actions influence what goes into a credit report, and this is where credit building can help empower you to take control and manage your files. Next, we have lenders and other businesses, and they play a key role in our credit ecosystem. Lenders and many other type of businesses feed information about you into the credit system from credit application and payment history, and retrieve information out of the system in the form of credit reports and scores. In addition to lenders and businesses who use credit report and credit information, we have what's called the credit reporting agencies. The three big ones are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. These companies hold an archive of our credit history. Next, we have the companies that create credit scores. The most well-known is FICO, which stands for Fair Isaac Corporation, and Vantage Score. Finally, we also have the regulators, who are responsible for making sure that all the key players are abiding by the relevant laws that govern the credit industry. Much of the enforcement of these laws fall on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission. These are government agencies that make sure that the consumers like us are protected and that the companies are following the law. There are two types of financial products that get reported into our credit reports: installment and revolving credit. An installment loan, such as an auto loan, a mortgage, or a student loan, is a loan that is disbursed as a lump sum and has a fixed beginning and end date. For example, you might buy a car that has a 60-month term, which has a payment schedule that is determined at the closing. For an installment loan to be active, it must carry a balance, have a monthly payment, and cannot be closed. This strategy will help you build credit and increase your score. And while paying off debt is a good thing, once paid in full, a loan is no longer active and will not continue to help you build credit. Eventually, an established credit score will disappear if the consumer has no active trade lines. The next financial product that gets reported onto our credit reports are revolving accounts. Revolving credit is an account like a credit card. For example, you may have a credit card that you use for different purchases each month. One month you might owe $100, another month you might owe $500, and another month you might not have a balance. Revolving credit offers an indefinite credit building solution as long as it is actively used. In this case, active means at least one payment every 6 months, but to really benefit for credit building purposes, monthly use is ideal. An outstanding balance on a credit card is not required to build credit. Incurring one small charge each month and paying it in full at the end of the billing cycle will help you build credit. I recommend that you use your card at least once a month for small purchases like gas or grocery, or paying your cell phone bill, or maybe putting a recurring subscription like a Netflix account or your music streaming service, and then paying off the balance in full at the end of the month. So why do we put so much emphasis on building your credit? It increases your access and your affordability and options for financial products like credit cards, loans, auto loans, student loans. It increases your chances to rent an apartment. Many landlords check credit reports to determine whether to rent to you and how much of security deposit to charge you, to turn on utilities, to acquire a cell phone plan. It's a prerequisite to asset and wealth building, and in some cases can affect your employment. Building your credit will save you money, increase your financial stability, and ultimately lead to financial security. Let's dive into credit reports and scores. Your credit report has 4 different sections: personal identifying information, your credit history, product records, and inquiries. The personal identifying information section of a credit report has your name, birth date, social security number, current and previous addresses, and employers. Some information only gets updated when a consumer applies for credit, so it's not unusual for this information to be out of date. It's important to review this section for unfamiliar information, which could be a sign of identity theft or an error in data entry. The credit history section of your credit report shows the type of credit accounts you have, your payments, your outstanding balances, your credit limits, dates accounts were open and closed, and current status, such as on-time payments and late payments. The public records section includes any bankruptcy filings. Bankruptcy is a legal process that an individual that cannot pay their credit and debt obligation files with the court to have the debt wiped out. Chapter 13 bankruptcy can remain on the credit report up to 7 years, while Chapter 7 bankruptcy can remain on the credit report for up to 10 years. The last section of the credit report is inquiries. The inquiries section shows which lenders, employers, and others who have requested your credit report in the last 2 years. There are two types of inquiries. There's soft inquiries and hard inquiries. Soft inquiries is initiated by the consumer. So when you check your credit report online, that's considered a soft inquiry. Does not affect your score. Hard inquiries, on the other hand, do affect your score. Hard inquiries are when you actually apply for credit. You apply for an apartment, a car loan, or a credit card. You can get a free copy of your credit report from annualcreditreport.com. Every consumer in the U.S. has a right to one free credit report from www.annualcreditreport.com. The following steps are required. First, you will need to input your name, address for the last 2 years, social security number, and phone number. It's very important that this information be put accurately. Next, you will be required to answer multiple choice security questions based on the information that's on your credit report. For example, you may be asked, what county did you live in 2015? Or something like, your credit file indicates that you may have an auto loan open in or around March 2018. Who is the lender? Note that sometimes the answer might be none of the above. And lastly, you will then receive access to your credit report and be able to download it if you answer the security questions correctly. If you don't answer these security questions correctly, you will not be able to access your report electronically and may be required to mail in verification of identity. So what's a good credit score? Let's talk in more general terms about what it means to have good credit. Generally, higher credit score indicates to lender and businesses that people are going to be better customers. People with the highest credit scores get the best rates and terms on loans and other products. Those with lower scores may have to pay more for loans and services or may be denied altogether. If you have not used credit at all or credit recently, it's possible that you don't have a credit score. Regardless of where you're starting from, it's important to focus on moving upwards. Let's focus on the key factors of the credit score and the underlying actions that you can take to change to impact them. Your FICO score is broken down into 5 different categories. Namely, your payment history is 35% of your overall score. Your debt to credit ratio is 30%. Inquiries or new credit is 10% of your score. The length of credit history, so how long you had credit, is 50% of your score. And 10% is determined by your credit mix. So you need to have both credit cards and loans to have a credit mix. Let's look at the scoring factors more closely. To start, payment history is the single most important factor. In order to have a payment history, one must have active installment and revolving trade lines. A strong credit profile can be categorized by having on-time payments, no serious delinquencies, and demonstrating consistent usage of existing credit accounts. Note that being 30 days or more late on even one payment can reduce your credit score by as much as 100 points. The next most significant element of strong credit is outstanding debt, particularly the usage of revolving debt, example credit cards. Unlike installment loans or mortgages, a consumer decides how much to pay each month on revolving debt. While there are certain helpful rules of thumb, such as maintaining a balance of under 30% at all times, The idea is to maintain as low of usage as possible at all times of the month and not max out any one credit card. Note that people with the best credit score have utilization rates of under 7%. A strong credit profile may be categorized by paying off balances and maintaining very low balances across all revolving accounts. Let's consider an example. Here we have Ruby, and Ruby has 3 different credit cards open. On the first one, the green one, she has a credit limit of $1,000 and owes $500. On the second one, the orange one, she has a limit of $2,500 and owes $1,500. On the last one, the blue one, she has a limit of $2,500, but this card is paid off. What is Ruby's utilization rate on all her credit cards? Well, Ruby has $6,000 in credit available to her, and she is using $2,000 of this credit. This makes her utilization rate 30%. So to get to 30%, you would take how much she owes in credit cards, which is $2,000, divided by her available credit, which is $6,000. And then you multiply it by 100, and that's how we get her utilization rate. Now, let's say that Ruby decides to close the card that she is not using. How does this impact her utilization rate? She now only has $3,500 in credit available to her, and she's still using $2,000 of that credit for a utilization rate of 57%. From this example, we see that Ruby's choice to close one of her accounts will actually negatively impact her because it will raise her utilization rate to 57%. Again, to get her utilization rate, we divide the amount that she owes, which is $2,000, divided by her available credit, which is $3,500, and multiply it by 100. And that's how we get her utilization rate. The next component of maintaining strong credit is to have a long length of credit history, something that, of course, develops with time and patience. With credit building, like any relationship, it takes time for trust to form. There are some things that can be done to avoid negatively impacting the length of credit history, such as keeping accounts open. Some of the factors that make up the calculations of length of credit history include oldest accounts and the average age of all open accounts. Next, we have inquiries. Applications for credit, also known as hard inquiries, can impact the credit scores, more so for someone with a thin file than for someone with a thicker file. They have the biggest impact in the first few months after made, but is generally not substantial, and often in the range of 10 to 20 points. The last scoring factor that we will discuss is credit mix. Creditors want to see that individuals know how to use different types of credit over a long period of time. As we know, revolving and installment trade lines are structured differently, and creditors care how consumers manage an account that is most similar to the line that they are considering extending. Do not necessarily apply for different types of credit simply to diversify your credit mix, but be strategic and only apply for credit when it fits your goals. Here are some helpful best practices. Remember to establish and maintain a mix of different types of active trade lines that are used regularly and paid on time. If you have one or more revolving credit products in that mix, focus on keeping balances as low as possible. Credit building may not happen overnight, but it can happen relatively quickly when you know the right rules and have the right tools. Thank you for joining me today. I want you to think of a goal or action item you can commit to doing today. Maybe that's pulling your credit report for the first time at annualcreditreport.com, or applying for your first credit card, or maybe you want to do more research on credit or credit building products. I hope you found this information useful. Now go out there and be great. You got this.